The blade of the sword almost sinks into the girl's throat. She sits on her knees, asking why he did it. He looks down at her, disgusted, contemptuous. The girl smiles despite what is happening. She laughed, thinking about how cute he was. The girl rejoiced, saying that only now he was looking at her with a look like a flame. But then she noticed, looking sideways, which made the blonde woman flinch, that he was giving her not only that look, but also the woman standing next to her. The one she thought would never get her hands dirty. The one who did nothing but squeeze out tears and evoke pity. Good and weak Charlotte. The sword rose with a distinctive sound. The man standing next to Charlotte covered her eyes with his hand so that she could not see what was happening. Ayla's painful scream echoed down the street. The man who had previously held the sword to the girl's throat said that because she had contaminated her hands with magic to harm Charlotte, her entire Mertensia family was destroyed. Laughing quietly, as if mockingly, Ayla looked directly into the boy's eyes. She took up her sword with both hands and cursed her executioner. They stared at each other for a moment longer. She was sitting, wounded, on her knees, and he was holding the sword, still looking down at her. Ayla said that he would be cursed, and he would have no choice but to love her. The boy stabbed her with the sword, saying that she was talking nonsense. The girl fell to the ground helplessly. Charlotte seemed to sympathize with Ayla, saying that she was so unhappy and that they had promised that they would end it painlessly. Berner, who was standing next to her, noticed that Charlotte was already shaking, but still worried about someone. Ayla was lying on the pavement, bleeding. She didn't understand why she and Charlotte were so different, why everyone treated her so well and comforted her, and she had to live these hellish last moments of her life. Ayla repeated her earlier words that he would have no choice but to love her. Loud sounds and barking of a dog made the girl wake up. She screamed in frustration, asking someone to do something to stop her from hearing this annoying barking. The girl brushed her teeth, wondering why the beautiful girl who had appeared in her dream was dying. She wanted that girl to lose her life only after fulfilling all her desires in this world. She shouted out with determination that she was not allowed to do this. Ayla was sleeping peacefully in her bed to the sound of birds chirping. Soon she woke up as if she didn't realize what was happening. By making a fuss, Ayla made the maids worry, and one of them stammered and asked why she was screaming. She asked who the girl from Ayla's dream was, but from the future, and why she had to die only after she got to this place. The people who lived in this place called her Ayla Mertensia, a rare thief. The girl thought that they must have been mistaken. After all, to be a little more precise, her name is Yun Hanil, and she moved into the body of the thief from the novel Lady Lily. It turns out that she is the author of this novel. But Hanil is surprised, because she wrote it 10 years ago. A man and a woman standing nearby are discussing the outfits of two women, namely Ayla and Charlotte. The woman wonders if it is possible that exactly the same clothes can make such a different impression. The man replies, as if mocking, that although they say that clothes are wings, they may not appear on all people. Hanil begs him to stop. After all, her dark past is happening to her in real time. The people around her discuss the women's outfits and say that who would have thought that Ayla's clothes would match so perfectly with another lady's. Someone else draws attention to Charlotte and says that the two ladies do not compare. A handsome guy holding the hand of an equally beautiful girl. They seem to be illuminated by the sun and the admiring glances of others. People ask who the lady is. Someone says that she seems to have just come out for the first time, but she already stands out. Like a lily. Hearing her inappropriate comparison, Hanil seems to feel ashamed of herself and figuratively asks to be saved. The women whisper and say that in comparison to her, that beautiful lady, someone looks completely opposite, referring to Connell herself in the role of Ayla. Remembering what the women are going to say next, the girl falls into a stupor. The women continue talking, saying that the characters are opposite, like a saint and a witch. After these words, Hanil finally experiences the Spanish shame about herself and says goodbye to all the characters in her novel. Returning to Duke Mertensius's mansion, Ayla screamed loudly. Falling on the bed, she tried to understand why she had become the thief Ayla herself. Hanil helped others more than once. She agreed to play on behalf of a team whose member did not show up. She borrowed money when the wrong person asked for it. She paid for her brother's and sister's education when her parents could not afford it. The girl has only memories of living like a gullible fool. Remembering this, she was overcome with a sense of horror. The girl looked around at the sword hanging on the wall in her room. It was probably the sword that had been used to kill her. Realizing what her end would be in Ayla's body, she jumped out of bed, nervously shouting that she could not die like that. So she decided not to live like a thief from now on. When Kanil visited the library, she noticed that despite the fact that there were many books written in her native language, hardly anyone was interested in them. She wondered whether it was worth meeting the main characters and suffering if Ayla already had enough of everything. And the most important thing that the protagonist of her novel had was beauty. But after scaring the maid almost to death, Hanil realized that beauty would not play any role, because the heroine has the status of a thief, so her smile looks like a murderer's fang. The girl dreamed of starting life unemployed with a huge amount of money. And finally, this dream has come true. Maybe because she is a thief? Ayla's brother, with whom the heroine had a tense relationship, came into the library, as well as with other family members. Her father, Duke Vincent of Mertensia, did not pay any attention to her at all. Aslan, the heroine's brother, is an arrogant person. It seemed as if he was ready to wipe Ayla off the face of the earth with his eyes, not even leaving a wet moon. When Aslan saw the books in the girl's hands, he said that they were not her level. This outraged not only the heroine, but also Hanil herself. She thought that this was very typical behavior for a brother and sister. Hanil was lying on the bed in her room reading books. Rinta was her favorite writer, whom she described in her novel. So she was once again admiring him as she finished his latest novel. Ayla asked the maid if it was correct that the ordered Rinta's novels would arrive tomorrow. After receiving a positive answer, she continued to dive into the fantastic world created by the writer. Muttering under her breath that she would like to steal Rinte's novels, the girl noticed a falling sun outside the window. This was the name of a total solar eclipse in the novel Madame Lily. Lethe's empire, in which the story is set, boasts a strong imperial power. And although it is called the Land of the Shining Sun, which is never covered by night, something is hidden in the shadows of this story. In the 5th century, right during the solar eclipse, Killian, who became famous as the evil sorcerer with the worst reputation in the world, destroyed the entire kingdom in one single night. And because of this, all the inhabitants of the empire are afraid of the falling shield that covers the sun, which is a symbol of the emperor. In fact, Hanil, when writing this novel, just wanted to name this phenomenon in a cool way. That's why she used this title. The collector's edition is due to arrive today, so Hanil eagerly asks the maid if she can bring it to her room as soon as she receives it. The maid replies that the books will not arrive until tomorrow morning. Hanil is surprised because the maid said the same thing yesterday, but nevertheless claims that she did not say anything like that. The girl notices today's newspaper in the maid's hands and asks for it. From it, Hanil learns that today is Falling Gate Day again, but can it be since the eclipse was yesterday? In a dark hall filled with people in robes and an oppressive atmosphere, a gloomy man asks his subject Luis if he knows what déjà vu is. The boy replies that it is a feeling as if you have already experienced something similar before. The arrogant, gloomy, but incredibly attractive man who had actually asked Luis about déjà vu says that for some reason today, he is experiencing it very clearly and unpleasantly. Hanil could not understand if she had gone back a day. And what about the limited edition of the best-selling novel, The Music Chest by Rinte? The maid replied that it would be delivered tomorrow morning. So the heroine decided that she would go to bed right away, so that the waiting time would not be boring and long. But the next day, when Ayla opened her eyes, it wasn't Rinta's collector's edition that was waiting for her. It was just another repetition of the day. Hanil screamed indignantly because she did not understand what was happening. The maids were frightened and apologized and begged her not to kill them. Hanil thought it was too unreal. Although what can one say about reality after being in one's own novel? Most likely the problem was ignorance of the cause. At least that's what Hanil thought. Was this a revelation from God telling her to end her reclusive life? But this option seemed nonsensical even to the girl. She walked around the room, wondering if it was possible that the ruler of this world would soon set things right. But first, it would be appropriate to calm down. For example, you can enjoy the life of a rich, unemployed person. Read all the Rinte novels again, eat delicious desserts, spend money that never ends. And someday she will wait for the ordered edition. The morning began again with the maids apologizing and begging her not to kill them. The next one was no different. Hannel was so tired of this daily monotony. Day after day, the events repeated themselves, so she thought she might never read this book again. Not only had she moved, but there was also this time loop. The fact that Hannel kept breathing at all in her dark past that suddenly came to life was only thanks to the writer Rinta. The girl decided that she had to move on to the next day at all costs. For 10 days, she went outside and tried walking on the road, but nothing worked. Hannel clutched the book she was still holding in her hand tightly. Did she really have to meet the main characters to get through this time loop? She was very angry because Ayla had clearly not planned to meet those two. She just wanted to enjoy her unemployed life in peace without following the plot of her own novel. In a burst of emotion, the book flew straight towards the maid who was still standing in the room. Hannel hit the unfortunate woman in the forehead, causing her to beg her mistress not to kill her. Returning to the same dark room, we can hear a dialogue between Luis and a man sitting on a throne. The subordinate asks his master if it is possible that his sense of déjà vu is simply a gift of foresight. The man replies that he definitely does not have such a gift, although he does have insight. Luis asks if it is possible that something unusual will happen today, trying to cheer up his master. But it seems to be a bad idea, because the man replies that he was going to kill Luis. It seems that the subordinate has never seen him so angry. Luis does not understand what happened. After all, yesterday everything was as usual. The boy discreetly puts a sedative in the tea and offers it to the boss so that he can find peace in his heart. But the man interrupts him, saying that he doesn't understand why he wants to kill his subject so badly. Luis says that he cannot understand what he has done that is so terrible. Before he even gets the cup of tea to the master, the boy stumbles and spills it on his master. The other subjects standing in the hall looked at Luis in fright, as if they were sympathizing with him. He, in turn, began to try to rectify the situation, but it was useless. His fate was already sealed. At one point, the owner realized that this was not just a feeling of déjà vu. This day had happened many times over. He laughed, and everyone in the room became tensely quiet. The man said that the power over the control of time should be entirely in the hands of God. It seems that he broke the long silence and began to act personally. Was there really a man whom God loved so much that he was even willing to break the laws of cause and effect? The man thought this was a very interesting case. He concluded that it would be a manifestation of etiquette to wring his neck. The maid screamed loudly, begging Mrs. Ayla not to kill her. Hannel was about to apologize to the girl and calm her down, but then she remembered that this was the same maid who had been seriously frightened by the protagonist's smile and fainted. What can we say about the unfortunate woman's behavior when her mistress apologizes? When Ayla tried to shut the girl up and touched her shoulder, asking her to stop screaming, the girl screamed even louder. The mistress frowned, saying in a stern tone that if the maid didn't shut up, she would eat her. In fact, it was just the first thing that came to Hannel's mind. But it worked perfectly. At one point, the maid, whose name was oddly enough Dobiela, started talking about herself in the third person about how bad and stupid she was. This behavior reminded Hannel of a character in a series of novels by an English writer. Ayla knelt down on one knee in front of the maid, reaching out to wipe the blood from her forehead. The lady said that the girl would probably have a scar. She was about to apologize, but then she remembered that she had fainted from her own smile and stopped immediately. Instead, she seemed to scold the maid for dirtying the floor. After this remark, Dobiela began to humiliate herself again, begging Ayla not to eat her. Hannel, watching this scene, thought that after this she would not even approach the girl. The sky was gloomy today. Connell had just woken up. Looking out the window, she was surprised because she thought that the weather could not change in the loop. She was interrupted from her thoughts by the news that the book she had ordered had finally arrived. Connell jumped out of bed and immediately began to take what she had been waiting for out of the package. A limited edition of the best-selling novel, The Music Chest by Rinte. Finally, Ayla held the book in her hands. She could not believe that it was not a dream, but a reality. Her brother tore her away from the celebration that was taking place in her soul. He asked rhetorically what was going on with Ayla, as if he already knew the answer. And then he said that their father was calling them. The atmosphere at the table was quite depressing. Vincent, Ayla's father, noticed that the girl seemed to have been replaced. She stopped going to the aristocratic meetings she used to love so much and started buying a lot of books, even though she couldn't read a line. Hanil thought that this was how her unemployed life would end, but Vincent continued his thought. He wanted his daughter to start studying, so he appointed a special person to take care of it. Soon, the new butler and part-time teacher was invited to the classroom. Suddenly, Hanil was grabbed by the shoulders and straightened her posture. A voice behind him said that he should start with the correct position, which he had just corrected. The tutor and personal butler introduced himself as Sebastian. The heroine immediately noted in her mind how banal and standard a name for a butler it was. Vincent said that he had high hopes for the boy, reminding her that he was the second son of the Viscount Agate family. He also added that his family has very deep traditions. Sebastian assured her that she could rely on him. Hanil, on the other hand, could not understand who this butler was. The girl stopped her future teacher, asking why he did not take off his cloak. The father was surprised, saying that the boy looked like a perfect butler, from his straight posture to his perfectly matching clothes, as if there was not a single flaw in him. But that's not what Hanil saw, and that's what Sebastian noticed, saying that she probably sees him differently from everyone else. Out of the blue, the heroine felt very excited. The unfocused eyes and incorrect description of the man's appearance may indicate hypnosis. Realizing this, Hanil hastened to correct her statement, saying that now that she had looked at the man again, he did seem like a model butler. She mentally suggested that the new teacher might be a magician. To begin with, Hanil tried to forget that magic didn't work on her alone. But if you think about it, even the greatest magicians can't use hypnosis whenever they want. Sebastian motioned for Isla to leave. Coming closer, he added that they would have enough time for him to teach the girl everything before the beginning of the dance party in honor of the Harvest Festival, which would be held in the Imperial Palace. Even if the same day does not repeat itself over and over again, a person has appeared who knows about the time loop. This surprised the heroine. Suddenly, the butler pressed Ayla against the wall, asking her to close her eyes for a while. The sound of a blade cutting through human skin made Hanil guess what Sebastian was smearing on her forehead while saying incomprehensible words. Most likely he was using an unknown magical technique. The girl felt how unpleasant the spell was. Sebastian reached for the girl's throat. Was he a sorcerer? Suddenly, Ayla's eyes flashed with a bright red glow, and she fell to the ground. The street was covered in darkness and belonged entirely to the night. Two knights walking along the alley heard a man asking a lady if she was afraid to walk alone in such places, and what she would do if a thief caught her. One of the knights, who was a prince, stopped. The other, his assistant, asked what their plan of action would be. The prince told him to just ignore him. There was a scream from the girl, ordering him to let her go. His Highness suspected that this was the same woman he had rescued before, but nevertheless rushed to the scene. In one stunning move, the knight finished off the offenders and saved the girl. Only for a moment the street was filled with cries of pain and horror, and then it became quiet. The guy, looking at Charlotte irritatedly, tried to understand why she was constantly getting into such dangerous situations. Either she had no instinct for self-preservation, or she was deliberately looking for adventures. Charlotte tearfully apologized to the young man, justifying her actions by saying that it was the first time she had left her homeland and come to the capital, so everything seemed incredibly strange to her. She had just gone for a walk and, without noticing it, entered this alley. Stammering, the girl told the prince that she was very scared and ran into his arms, which made him become softer towards her. Instead, the young man asked Charlotte if she was afraid of him, despite the fact that he had just killed people. Then he said that he had never seen a woman like her before. For him, it seemed like something out of the ordinary. Ayla was sitting on the floor, leaning on the wall and gulping air. At that moment, Sebastian remarked that the girl could not possibly die from such a spell. Hanil was surprised that sorcerers still existed. She asked the butler if he wanted to kill her through the noose, but Sebastian mysteriously repeated the girl's question, as if he did not understand what she was talking about. Ayla began to describe her question in more detail. She said she meant what made that day keep repeating itself. Then the butler agreed with her. She was right. Sebastian hadn't looked for someone for a long time when he was so sure. And now he did it because Ayla made his one very unpleasant day repeat itself several times. Therefore, in his opinion, she should have calmed the upset owner. Sebastian could not understand who Ayla was. It seemed to him that she was human, but she was not affected by magic. The girl was very surprised. After all, she thought that magicians had long since ceased to exist. The master noticed her reaction and said that Ayla was behaving as if she had never seen anything like this before. As if she was a member of the nobility, she must have encountered magic often. Hanil found it even stranger that the man was using completely opposite magic and spells. After all, this should be something impossible. Sebastian leaned into the girl's ear and said that he was very curious about who she was. He also added that Ayla seems to be receiving a lot of love. The energy of Reserve is absorbed into her whole body, as if poisoning the girl. Reserve is the name of the only deity worshipped in Lethe's empire, but in the novel it was nothing more than an ordinary symbol. But this deity, does it really exist? Hanil asked Sebastian about his existence. The man replied that this was a very unexpected question because the girl was just now proving with her whole body that it existed. The heroine thought it was very strange. After all, when did her body become capable of doing this? Not only that, but spells don't work on her. Although Ayla is a repulsive thief, she is an ordinary lady who has no abilities or powers. Not only can she not receive God's love, create time loops, or get rid of spells, but she can't have any god marks on her body. This can only mean that all this began after Hanil moved into her body. All of this is happening because of the love of the deity directed at her, Yun Hanil. The girl asked Sebastian if the time loop could have started because of that deity. The man explained that only a higher power can control time. However, even a deity must be careful about destroying the time clock. Hanil nervously asked about the repetition of the same day. She was told that the fact that the same day kept repeating itself over and over again was a testament to its amazing efforts. If we talk about the difference between the last day and the ones that were repeated, Hanil was behaving like a thief. Therefore, the time loop stopped. Accordingly, the deity wants her to act as described in the novel, to live like the thief Ayla. It also wants Hanil to die. Tears came to the girl's eyes. It was clear that she wanted to live. Connell asked a rhetorical question. Doesn't this sound like a real curse? She hadn't even asked him to repeat this day, and it wasn't her wish. Ayla just wanted a normal, unremarkable life. But the deity was so unkind. Hanil was sure that the deity had cursed her. Or maybe it just wanted to torture her. Sebastian laughed out loud like a madman. While still laughing, he said that he even felt sorry for Reserve. After all, this is one-sided love from a deity. The sorcerer told the girl that he had changed his mind. Ayla didn't really understand what he meant, but the man continued. He asked if the heroine had heard the voice of the Reserve, something frank and personal. Hanil replied that there was nothing like that. As expected, Reserve is a deity who never answers human prayers. It is also very demanding. People ask him to hear their wishes and fulfill them. But what kind of responsible god is this? Still, Sebastian liked Ayla very much. He promised her that he would fulfill any wish the girl might have. The butler's statement surprised Ayla. But the man hastened to explain that the girl was receiving God's love, and he was disappointed in his will. And besides, it seems she really hates the Reserve, so it is quite possible that they can become very good partners. But Hanil objected, saying that she was not receiving any love. Then Sebastian suggested calling it curiosity. And then he continued, as if even if, as she said, she does not receive love from him, the man is still sure that confronting the fate given to him is the road along which they will go against the will of God. That is why the sorcerer offered the girl to sign a contract and betray this deity together. Allegedly, she would find the life she dreamed of, and he would get rid of his hatred. He also added that it would be a simple contract because someone like him could easily destroy the image of a god. A sorcerer, a monster who sucks people out of their happiness, and someone who has to live a life of thievery and die. A dubious alliance, isn't it? Ayla is faced with a choice. Sign a contract with the devil or die as a thief. But despite her hesitation, Hanil asked if the sorcerer could stop the noose. The answer was that it would be difficult, but together they would be able to pull the root out in a completely unexpected direction. The man asked if the heroine would still sign the contract, to which he received a rather meaningful answer, as if she could sign a contract with a person she knew nothing about, neither his name nor his face. The sorcerer was very surprised by this, but Ayla continued, as if Sebastian Agate was just his pseudonym. And besides, it could hardly be his real face. The man said that Hanil was right about the name, but her remark about his real face angered him. After the sorcerer's answer, Ayla blushed and asked him again, in surprise, if it was fake. Perhaps she still did not expect that a person could be so unearthly beautiful. The man replied that the girl knew very well that spells do not work on her. He held her hand up to his face and said that it was not an illusion. Ayla seemed to be petrified. She still could not believe that this was the man's real appearance. It seemed as if for a moment the heroine forgot how to breathe. After calming her surprise a bit, the heroine asked what the owner's name was. His name was Killian. Hanil was shocked because it was the name of an evil sorcerer. It was nonsense. Why is it called the name of a man who lived before the 5th century? Hanil thought that it must be difficult to live in society with such a name, as if it was the same as living on Earth with the name Hitler. The girl was pulled out of her thoughts when Killian asked her if she was ready to sign the contract. Ayla agreed without any hesitation. The man noticed that she answered quite easily. So Hanil explained that before Killian came along, she had been so lonely that she even wanted to run away. And if someone like a god would control her life at will, she would have no choice but to obey him. That is why she agreed. This was not how she had imagined her life after signing the contract. Now she stood with a straight posture and a book on her head. The book she had been waiting for so long. Killian said that if the heroine could hold on for 10 minutes, he would let her read the book. Ayla asked if she could at least get rid of this terribly uncomfortable corset. She was refused. Recalling that when writing the novel, the girl had dressed the main character in the same way, Hanil mentally apologized to her. But most of all, Ayla was orphaned by the fact that Killian recognized at first sight what she valued most. That's why she asked how he knew she was a hardcore fan, that is, a lover of the book. Did he use hypnosis on the maid and find out this information? The man asked what Ayla meant by hypnosis. The girl reminded him that on the first day they met, Killian had deceived her father by saying that he was a butler. The magician said that he just walked into the room confidently, and the heroine's father decided that he was a butler, as if his technique was more like an enchantment than hypnosis. As if hypnosis only controls the brain, but using his ability, he can pull out desires hidden deep in the inner world and satisfy them. Hanil was surprised. What does it mean to have desires hidden deep in the inner world? Does it mean that Vincent, Ayla's father, wanted her to have a teacher and a personal butler? That's why she is now learning the rules of etiquette at an accelerated pace. There must have been something that the girl missed when she agreed to the contract. Accepting Killian's offer meant that they would spend a lot of time together to exchange information, and this happened after he was named her teacher and personal butler. The sorcerer, meanwhile, was trying to figure out what Ayla was really like. Not only self-care, did she really give up on her existence, getting used to living like an animal? Not only does she lack any etiquette, which is as important to aristocrats as air, but her posture leaves much to be desired. The man noticed that the lady seemed to live in another world. Her reaction is not focused on that, not to mention her unusual way of speaking. The sorcerer said that even though the girl did not know about the state of affairs in this world, if she had been born on this earth, then hearing only the first syllable of the spell, with a normal reaction, she would have started to tremble and beg for God's mercy. But what is most important is the way Ayla let his name pass her ears without showing any excitement. The girl was indignant, as if this did not show any concern. She did not agree with this statement. Of course, Ayla knew that Killian was the name of an evil sorcerer who destroyed an entire country 500 years ago. But should she really tremble when she heard the name? After all, in any case, it was only a man with the same name. The man thought about it, saying that usually people can't even say his name out loud. Because of the sorcerer's words, an association with Voldemort arose in Hanil's mind. Killian said that although he liked the way the heroine perfectly criticized the deity, he thought she was guessing, which seemed very strange. 10 minutes of hard labor passed. After that, the man added that Ayla didn't even have to tell him who she was, because he would find out everything in the conclusion. Hanil knew that as soon as Killian found out that she had written this novel, she would be killed. He seems to hate the local deity very much. but the writer is also to some extent considered a god who created this world. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door, asking if the lady was there. Ayla jumped up and asked Killian to wait a moment, but a second later she almost fell over because of her dress, which she stepped on with her heel. The sorcerer was there at the right moment, so he managed to catch the girl. Still holding Connell from the waist, the man said that if it was so difficult for her to walk on her own, then he probably still had a lot to teach her. Ordering Killian to let her go, Ayla hurried to open the door. Behind the door stood Sophia, the heroine's personal maid, who would betray her in the future and play a crucial role in the destruction of the Mertensia family. The fact is that the Mertensius family had two types of servants. One was the most ordinary, and the other was a small number of sycophants trying to grab something for themselves. Sophia began to flatter her mistress, saying that she would look much smarter now, as if those who had previously called her a witch would start to look at her. Ayla was sure it was just flattery. It didn't matter whether she had a teacher or not, she had always been stupid. She stayed away from school and was uneducated. Of course, in the field of etiquette too. In addition, she was quick to give in to emotions and acted with her body and mouth faster than with her head. At the same time, the girl behaved exactly the same way when she heard the usual praise. The maid continued to flatter her, saying that even the lady's hair sticking out in different directions was so attractive, and her skin is inexplicably white and looks like silk, although the heroine was quite sweaty, adding a few compliments about her eyes, as if Sophia had never seen anyone in her life except her mistress, who had such fantastically bright eyes. The maid smoothly moved on to the catalogue of dresses that Ayla had selected for her to buy. Around the simple and uneducated Ayla, who tolerated even such conversations, gathered such hypocrites who betrayed or used her. While she had no idea about anything, just accepting everything as if in a daze, Sophia began to cry, thinking that the lady was not reacting because she did not like the cream-colored dress she had picked out for her earlier. The girl asked if the heroine still needed her. Ayla wanted to avoid contact with her maid because she knew where this would lead, but she still couldn't push her away as she thought she would. For some reason, it reminded her of the days of the gullible, silly Yoon Hanil. Sophia started screaming that it was all because of that unknown lady from the Viscount's family, Charlotte Angelo. As if she hadn't been there, Ayla and His Majesty the Prince would have been a match made in heaven. Probably not wanting to hear this, Ayla took a few steps back and stood behind her butler. She hid behind him, looking at Sophia with a sideways glance. Killian suggested that the lady had acted unkindly toward the lady. Sophia actively agreed with the butler's opinion, saying that he most likely already knew everything, but that Miss Ayla was incredibly in love with His Highness the Prince. The man turned to Ayla somewhat mockingly, asking if this was true. In her mind, Hanil of course denied it. As a writer, she believed that Berner, the prince, was destined to be with Charlotte. Sophia continued to claim that everything went wrong because that girl interfered. The maid asked her mistress to stop tormenting herself with one-sided love. Killian continued to mock the girl. Meanwhile, the maid continued, as if that was why the lady decided to cope by reading books in the corner of the room every day, like some kind of ruin. She also added that Ayla cries every day because of this. But since Sophia's main goal was to get Ayla to buy dresses, she continued to advertise the product. The maid showed a new style of dresses with the back of the skirt gathered to fit. Looking at the picture, Ayla thought about it, trying to remember something. In Miss Lily's novel, this design was created by the main character, Charlotte. She was the daughter of a viscount and lived on the outskirts of the village. So unlike other nobles, she grew up helping with farming. To prevent her clothes from getting dirty, she walked with her dress up. Because she thought the skirt that fell down the back was cute, she added her own idea and thus created a new design. Berner had already found it and brought Charlotte's design to life with the help of the world's best tailor, Pollen. After a while, this design became popular and all aristocrats, without exception, wore it to balls and parties. And Ayla was one of them. As if on purpose, Mrs. Mertensia poured wine on Charlotte's dress. She fake sympathized, saying that she was very sorry for the lady's beautiful dress. Charlotte, crying, said that everything was fine, because it was just a mistake, and asked the heroine not to worry. The people around her whispered that Ayla was a real witch, and lamented the fact that Pollen's only dress in the world had been ruined. The prince hurried to the scene and said it didn't matter, As if it didn't matter how many of them were needed, they could always make new ones. He was the one who paid for the dress, so there was nothing to worry about. That's roughly how it all went down. In general, when Hanil was writing Pani Lilia, she was a bit obsessed with dresses. That's probably why this story appeared here. Back then, she didn't realize that wearing dresses was so uncomfortable. Anyway, at the next ball, which is coming up very soon, Ayla will have to act like a thief again. If she doesn't follow this, the time loop will start again. And if she does, she'll die. Killian noticed that Ayla was thinking. He asked her if she liked the dresses at all. Ayla turned to the butler and grabbed him by the collar and pulled him toward her. She whispered that they did not suit her and that there were too many of them. Then she asked what her husband thought about it. Killian replied that he was saving money, a wonderful answer worthy of a duke's daughter. The sorcerer also asked to speak to him informally, because who is this lady who speaks on a first-name basis with her butler? As if anyone heard, they would laugh at her. Killian noticed that Ayla seemed to want to discuss a lot of her problems with him. And then he asked if the girl had forgotten that she was sailing on the same boat with him. Hanil asked Sophia to leave the room for a while. The maid said that her mistress must hate her. Ayla hastened to object, but Sophia continued to assure her not to worry, because even if other people called her a witch, she would still always be on her mistress's side. Killian interrupted the conversation, saying that he didn't seem to notice it, but apparently, witch and stupid had become synonymous if Ayla turned a blind eye to it. Hanil tried to understand what the butler was going to do. The man continued talking to the maid. He said that she makes people repeat the same thing. Then he asked if they weren't in the same boat. But nevertheless, the maid continued to cry and say that she had decided everything herself. Does she really not trust him at all? Keelan asked the girl's name. Then he added that Sophia means wisdom. The girl replied that her father had given it to her so that she would always be smart. The sorcerer seemed to keep pressing, asking if she was really happy with her name. Suddenly, the girl shouted that he would have been better off giving her money instead of telling her nonsense. Allegedly, this man, who called himself her father, said that it was the duty of the nobility to give away all their property to the poor, and she could not even see any aristocratic privileges. Sophia freely showed one of her sides, which she continued to hide all the time, and while saying all this, she looked incredibly happy. In fact, she just wanted to make money, which is why she came here from that ugly hovel. This was Killian's personal ability that he was talking about. Meanwhile, Sophia turned on the lady, saying that she was a bitch, and that all this time she had to try hard to please the heroine, a useless girl. As if 100 times a day, her mood would soar above the heavens and then crash to the ground. If the prince did not look at Ayla, the lady would immediately begin to throw out all her anger at her. The maid screamed that she couldn't do anything if His Highness hated her because she was just a stone with a pretty face. But still, thanks to Ayla, Sophia had many of her desires satisfied. She thanked the lady for believing in her deception. Of course, the heroine's status was different from other ladies, so she believed the nonsense that the maid put in her ears about not wearing the same dress twice. Killian turned conspiratorially toward Ayla. Apparently, the girl felt quite uncomfortable. Sophia continued that she could keep everything that was used only once. But lately, the lady hasn't even looked at her once favorite dresses. And of course, this makes the maid very angry. The maid was muttering under her breath that Ayla must order this season's dresses as soon as possible. The sorcerer interrupted her and said that the lady would do whatever the maid wanted. The heroine was very confused, not understanding why the man was doing this. As if she were crazy, Sophia began to say how much she liked the sapphire necklace that Connell had worn the last time. She said that when she stood under the chandelier wearing it, she looked like a real princess. Grabbing Ayla's hand, she continued to talk about how much she liked that delicate necklace made of black pearls, similar to those worn by noble ladies. And, as if to top it all off, there was a diamond hair ornament that the lady wore at the last ball. She also handed me a pair of gloves with a silver ring. The maid was ready to continue with her list, but Killian interrupted her by asking Hanil what she was going to do. The heroine didn't know what to do, but the sorcerer said that she had to make all the decisions. The girl did not even want to communicate with Sophia, but she was only deceiving Ayla, who was in the novel. Personally, Hanil had no personal animosity towards her. Even though she became the thief Ayla, she was still the fearful Yoon Hanil. She was never afraid of being taken advantage of. She was afraid of being hated. She could not refuse people because she was afraid to be alone. The heroine caught herself thinking that she just wanted to run away. Although she had been running away before, now her head is full of thoughts that she wants to hide from everything again. Killian noticed that she was scared and assured her that there was nothing to be afraid of. After all, she has nothing. No curiosity from her family, no love, no friends, nothing. She can just do what she wants without fear of any obstacles, because she has nothing to lose. The sorcerer asked whether Ayla liked the maid or not. The girl was confused because what kind of a method of separation is this? She is not even a child. Nevertheless, Hanil answered that she did not like her. The butler asked why. Stammering, the heroine replied that the maid wanted to use her. Then Killian continued that she had only two right choices. The first, to pay Sophia back 100-fold and not even give her a chance to show her courage again. Second, if there is no way to improve the situation, Ayla can still remove the maid from this world forever. The man was surprised, because it couldn't be a difficult choice. Only two options. Hanil thought that she would have been better off saying that she was banishing the maid. Still, killing it was a bit much, so Ayla chose the first option. Killian agreed, but said that they would determine the punishment for Sophia's sins later. But first, he took a promise from the girl that she would no longer raise dogs that tear their owners apart. Then the man began to pull Ayla's cheeks and demanded that she repeat the words he had just said. He added that if she still broke her promise, he would scold her. Ayla and Yoon Hanil lived completely different lives, as a thief and a naive fool. However, the environment in which they grew up was very similar. After all, neither of them had a single normal person in their vicinity. Killian snapped his fingers, and Sophia came to, remembering everything she had said. The maid began to apologize, saying that she was sure she was possessed by something at that moment. She said that she could never have said such things sincerely. Ayla lifted her head haughtily and said that she did not raise dogs that bite their owners. Sophia began to scream that it was just a misunderstanding, while Killian whispered something in Hanil's ear. She listened intently and then smiled. The heroine asked Sophia if she really thought that she did not realize that she was stealing. Ayla said that she just turned a blind eye to it because she saw the maid trying her best to please her. But still, the maid chose to ignore her so much. Then the lady continued that she would not calm down even if Sophia cut her wrist in front of her right now. But it was as if, when she thought about their attachment to each other, she certainly wanted to give the maid one last chance. Killian continued to whisper something in Ayla's ear. The lady continued that if the maid understood her, she should obey, sit quietly and wait for the heroine to come for her. The guards, who were already standing at the door, asked what had happened. Then Connell ordered Sophia to be taken to an underground prison. The maid screamed that her mistress could not do this to her because she had spent her whole life for her. But Ayla did not care. It was the first time she had ever experienced something like this. The door slammed shut. Killian said that he hadn't paid attention to Ayla's fear of him because it was obvious. But the way she trembled in front of her maid was very strange to him. He asked her where the impudent girl who had called God names had gone. Hanil thought that she could no longer avoid answering this question. Although she could not tell him that it was a novel she had written, she told the man that she had come to this place from another world. Killian said he thought so. Ayla was surprised and asked how he had done it. The sorcerer explained that from head to toe, she did not have a trace of a high-ranking lady. The girl asked if she really looked so suspicious. The man replied that she did. The heroine said that she was not here by choice. One day she just opened her eyes, already in this body. Killian said that these were signs of transmigration. That is why her whole body was enveloped in the energy of the reserve. The man asked the question, as if then where did the true owner of this body go? The girl replied that she could not know, but she thought that God could not have just thrown out a soul that was living peacefully and put it into this body. Maybe there were some problems in Ayla's soul. It seemed to Hanil that this was a very important clue. Killian asked her to tell him what she already knew. The heroine said that she was a stupid girl, as the sorcerer had said, but the first owner of this body was a thief. If Connell does not behave like a thief, then maybe the noose will work again. The girl thought that the man was quite a guesser, so the best option would be to lie to him as little as possible. She had to be able to hide the truth. Ayla told the sorcerer that she had a vision. Killian noticed that earlier the girl had said the exact opposite. But Hanil said that it had just happened, at the moment when her husband said she was thinking about something. The heroine said that she had seen similar things before, but she didn't know it was a vision. She told him that she was acting like a thief because the noose had stopped. Then she told him about what had happened at the ball in honor of the Harvest Festival. She told him that everyone respected Charlotte but avoided Ayla, and for some reason he looked very happy. Killian asked that if everything is as Hanil says, it means that the loop she mentioned will soon work again. It means that God wants her to behave like a perfect thief, as if this was Ayla's original destiny. But the man asked Hanil why she was chosen. If God wanted this body to act like a thief, why did he choose her out of a large number of souls? She seemed to have a completely opposite character. And besides, she was a soul from another world. Ayla thought that Killian was being too prescient. Of course, it was obvious to her that the deity had chosen her because she was the writer of the novel. But nevertheless, the girl told her husband that not even a month had passed since she had arrived in this world, so how could she know about the deep plan of the reserve? But the sorcerer still asked Ayla what she wanted. The heroine replied that she only wanted the loop to stop. Unexpectedly, Killian said that he still could not use his abilities on the one who had come here from another world. Hanil was outraged, because he had just tried to use his powers on her. The man said that he was ready to hear Ayla's story, but she suggested that they talk only after the sorcerer stopped his flattery. The heroine mentally noted that he had already discovered her weakness. Killian promised that he would not interrogate Hanil right now. He also added that he would pretend to fall for her deception. The girl realized that he already knew that she was not only telling the truth. The man said that Ayla was playing the role of a scapegoat for Charlotte, but the heroine was quick to correct that she was playing the role of a thief. Killian sarcastically asked where she saw a thief here. The girl began to justify herself, but the sorcerer interrupted her, saying that it was illogical. Killian asked the question again, as if she was not very miserable because she had been taken advantage of in every possible way. But Hanil justified herself by saying that even though she had been used, everyone still considered her a real thief. She also thought that the deity wanted her to be treated the same way. After all, when Hanil wrote this, she was only on Charlotte's side. And in fact, Ayla is not really a real thief anymore. In her role, she is even closer to a Cupid. Killian said that he thought the deity was repeating the same day for Ayla's sake, but in fact, it was all for the sake of that girl Charlotte. Nevertheless, the man said that he still liked those who were deceived more, because it was more fun. The heroine thought that he had very strange tastes. Killian suggested that the girl become a sacrificial sheep, forced to pretend to be a thief, and take everything that belongs to this Charlotte. If that's what the deity wants her to do, why doesn't she just become a real thief, so that no one, not even the deity itself, can turn her into a sacrificial lamb or scapegoat? Ayla started to say that if that was the case, then her value to the deity might change a bit. But Killian interrupted her, asking if it was really the god who determined her value. If so, then it can take away everything Charlotte has. Wealth, respect, power, her husband. Ayla can take absolutely everything. And then the value of that girl will disappear instead. Just like the stepmother and stepsisters in the Cinderella stories, about whom Connell read in the distant past, in her childhood. Perhaps when she watched the antagonists punish the villains and praise the good heroes, she formed a certain stereotype. The girl could not even think about the complete victory of the villain over the main character. After all, it was originally an ordinary novel, whereas a thief can do that. She is not the protagonist of Miss Lily's novel. It is impossible to take away the place of the main character. But what if it is an evil character who takes the place of the main character? Hanil found out that she has to behave like a villain, but no one said that she couldn't be the main character. Maybe she will still be able to stop the time loop and survive. Maybe everything will change. Ayla will become more honest and cruel than she is now. She will do what she wants. Killian said he would help the girl. He wants the heroine to be able to make everyone fall at her feet and confidently go forward on her own. The man said that Ayla can simply ignore everything that makes her uncomfortable and displeasing. as if in her own world, she could get rid of what she didn't want to do. The sorcerer said that everything would be decided by her word alone, because he would personally arrange it. But of course, Ayla would not have the option of escaping. The answer was determined from the very beginning. There was no running away. She had to face the problem head-on. If Ayla was to become a thief, she had to take the place of the main character and become not just an ordinary thief, but a real thief. This is what the heroine is told by the one who said she could despise the deity. This was the advice of a real thief. And in general, who can resist the temptation of the devil? Hanil thought she could not do it alone, but with him, she would succeed. Hanil stood firmly and proudly in front of Killian. She confidently asked him to turn her into a thief. The man gladly agreed. Many things happened. No sooner had Ayla freed herself from the falling man's noose than Killian, the sorcerer, found her, and she was in danger. Soon they made a deal with her life at stake. His very existence and meeting with the heroine of the novel could not have been reflected in the original story. But that's not all. Hanil expelled Sophia, who played a far from insignificant role in the novel. She wondered if everything would be okay. The girl was worried about the noose. She asked Killian if tomorrow would ever come. The man replied that although the deity controls time, there is a limit to everything. According to the sorcerer, it can only loop a limited amount of time. According to their assumptions, the loop was activated only when Ayla interfered with the events of the novel. Even if we recall, the day of the falling, when the heroine injured the maid, was the first moment of Ayla's villainy in the novel Madame Lily. This means that if Ayla began to act before her first moment of appearance, namely the ball in honor of the Harvest Festival, then Hanil's fate may still change. One of the maids said that she was very happy to see the mistress so energetic again. Another added that Ayla should be strong, because men are not the most important thing in life. Connell was surprised, saying that the maids used to be afraid to say even one word. One of the maids apologized, saying that it seemed to them that the mistress had become more affectionate. And besides, Dobiela said that she hurt her own forehead, and Ayla just wiped the blood off. The maid said that it would be good if Dobiela were here now, because she had a good sense in such matters. It turned out that before coming to the estate, the girl had worked in a sewing workshop. The heroine noticed that Killian was not wearing her cloak. This surprised the girl, so she asked why, during Sophia's visit, the man had hurriedly put it on, and now he was standing quietly without it. The sorcerer explained that people with innate magical abilities can constantly attract bad luck. Just by showing their appearance, they condemn themselves to a stream of misfortune. As if that was the reason why the man hid his body under a cloak that restrained magic. But Killian said that he had many more alternatives to replace it, and showed a tattoo on his chest in the form of a snake. Ayla was surprised because the animal was moving on the man's body. She asked what kind of spell it was. Killian replied that it allows a sorcerer to completely deprive himself of magic. After all, if it disappears even from the depths of the body, it will begin to absorb vital energy. This is the most a man can do if he doesn't want to cause injury to people around him. Hanil came closer to Killian and grabbed his hand. She said that the most important thing now was whether her husband was okay. Of course, this surprised the sorcerer, but he asked her again what she had just said, mocking her as if he hadn't heard her because he was so old. The girl immediately realized that she was being mocked, but she asked how old the man was anyway. Killian replied that he was over 500 years old. Ayla was outraged, saying that this was not funny at all, but the butler grabbed her cheek and let her read his personal schedule. Killian familiarized the heroine with some of the points, saying that she would get up at 5 in the morning, and instead of the maid, who was now in prison, new maids would help the lady with bathing. The girl said that she was actually terribly lazy to do all this. The butler advised Ayla to agree, because otherwise he would take care of it personally. But he was worried that such an insensitive person like him could hurt the girl. In her mind, the heroine wondered if her dream of a rich, unemployed life would be destroyed just like that. But Killian seemed to hear Hanil's thoughts and told her that she could dream if she wanted to, because unlike the deity, he would not insist on the methods he chose. Given that Ayla is branded a thief by God's will, it might seem that Killian is also controlling her. But there is one difference. She chose this path herself. The man said that he was only giving her direction, but that she had to take action on her own. He also added that if Ayla wants something, let her tell him. He would look forward to it. He is the only person who is not subject to his abilities. She looks like a blank sheet of paper now. So what color will she be painted when she achieves her goals? After that, Killian told Ayla that public curiosity is important for a bad reputation. The girl should use it and capture the attention of the public at the ball, which was initially devoted to Charlotte. Have you heard of the effect of a bully and a kitten on a rainy day? This scene often appears in stories about pure and sincere love. The protagonist meets a bully who feeds and shields a small kitten from the rain and falls in love with it. In other words, if the thief Ayla behaves a little better than before, without even approaching ideal behavior, she can easily draw people's attention to her new self. Perhaps simple-minded Yoon Hanil will have no trouble showing the good side of the thief that Ayla could not discover in herself. But despite this, the girl still seems strange compared to the other inhabitants of this world. Killian said that to begin with, Ayla should ideally know the rules of aristocratic society's etiquette. First of all, at least 2 rules must be observed. First, do not neglect other people. Second, do not be modest if someone is trying to humiliate a girl. And the third is not to call the sorcerer by his name and speak to him informally. Kanil asked the man if he remembered what he had told her earlier, that at the ball she needed to grab the attention that was meant for Charlotte. Even if the ladies wear identical dresses, Charlotte will still attract more interest. Ayla, on the other hand, cannot wear outdated outfits, otherwise she will become a laughingstock. The heroine said she wasn't entirely sure, but she thinks she knows one way. At the last moment, the girl thought that it was impossible after all. She was just being stupid. But Killian said that reckless acts seem even more amazing, so he asked the girl to tell him about her wish. Ayla asked if the butler would laugh at her. The answer was that he would not. Then the girl finally decided. She said she wanted to wear a chemise dress, that is, an outfit that is used as a sleeping shirt. Killian said that of course if a girl went to the ball in a sleeping shirt, all eyes would be on her, but Ayla was quick to interrupt him. Chemise à la reine. This dress was invented in the 18th century by Marie Antoinette, Queen of France. At a time when everyone was fascinated by theatrical performances, she, dressed in it, personally participated in the performance, attracting everyone's attention. But Allah is not a king or a queen. She doubted it for a moment, but the magician immediately realized that she wanted to create a new design. He asked if she wanted to contact the sewing workshop right away. As if the heroine liked a particular designer, he wanted her to tell the man his name. Killian said he could bring him to the estate anytime, but Hanil stopped the butler. The girl began to explain that the chemise dress does not squeeze the body with a tight corset or stomach, as if there was no need to make the skirt unnaturally puffy with the help of a pannier. Ayla began to talk enthusiastically about the features of this dress. Killian said that she looked very happy. The heroine regained consciousness. The butler said that he was very pleased to see her, and then asked her, knowing what she was thinking, if she liked dresses. Connell said that in her childhood, for a short time, she wanted to be a designer. But because she spent all her time working, she completely forgot about her dreams. In the novel, Charlotte creates a new dress design precisely because for 10 years, while describing it, the writer projected her desires onto it. Hanil envied the life where everyone loves you for no reason at all, even if you don't put much effort into it. Ayla said that dreams are called dreams because they never come true. Then the heroine asked the butler if he had any dreams. He replied that he had even forgotten about the existence of something like that. The girl laughed, asking if this was even possible. She also thought that the sorcerer probably still hadn't moved on from the image of a 500-year-old. The heroine thought about how she had lived up to that point, forgetting about all her desires, as if she had turned into an old woman. Then she said that in any case, it was not something important. She said that the butler could forget what she had said, but Killian reminded her of his words that Hanel should ignore anything that made her uncomfortable. He asked if the heroine remembered what he asked her to do next. Ayla said that she should do what she hates, so that what she hates is unnecessary in her world. The butler agreed. She would personally design a dress that didn't exist yet and wear it to a ball where all the fashionistas were going to be. Isla was sure that others would judge her, but Killian told her that she was not prioritizing well. After all, what she wants to do, what she wants to own, what will bring her benefit and pleasure. In general, it doesn't matter what others say. She just has to do what she wants to do. The man suggested that the heroine come up with a reason why everyone would quarrel with her if she really cared. But he still moved on to the topic of the designer, asking with whom she would like to work. Ayla asked if the butler would really bring anyone. He replied that he would be happy to do so if it was his lady's order. The girl smiled slyly. Most likely, she had already made her choice. His Highness the Prince was outraged. He could not believe that the best tailor in the country was on vacation. The young man ordered the servants to call Pollen again first, because Charlotte really needed him. The servant said that they had even formed a search party, but the tailor simply disappeared without leaving a trace. The prince kept shouting, as if it was impossible that they couldn't even find out where Pollen, who worked for the imperial family, had gone. The servant said there were no records of him using trains or ships. Even the teleportation center said he had not used them. His Highness continued to say that this was impossible. The servant agreed, but there was nothing he could do. Charlotte assured him that everything was fine, because she just wanted to add a few more decorations. But in fact, standing on the balcony, she thought this was the strangest day of her life. Everything she wanted always came true. Everyone loved her. And if she got into any trouble, someone would always come and rescue her. She thought that everything that had happened to her since her birth was nothing but a blessing from God. And anyway, even if the tailor went on vacation, he could not disappear into thin air without leaving a trace. Charlotte thought that he had been kidnapped and decided that she had to go to his house and find at least some clues. She didn't realize what she was doing, but men fall in love with her under any circumstances. This is very dangerous, so she should not go to unfamiliar places. Most likely, such an act will make the prince angry. Charlotte decided that she just needed to avoid being seen by the guards, but she was spotted at the same moment. The men said that the girl should not go outside again because it was an order from His Highness. Using her beauty, Charlotte asked the guards to accompany her. Of course, the knights could not refuse. Soon, the girl and the guards reached Polluk's house. The knights left the girl, asking her to return immediately after she had done everything she needed to do. When Charlotte entered the house, she saw a figure. At first, she thought the tailor had returned, but she noticed that the man she saw in front of her looked much stronger and taller than Pollen. While she was wondering if this person could be the kidnapper, the man was already behind her. He said in Charlotte's ear that it was time to go to bed, which made her scream in fright. She fell to the ground, asking who the man was. In her mind, she wondered because he had just been right in front of her. Killian replied that he was someone Charlotte should forget and asked her the heroine's name. The girl realized that she could not move and mentally begged for help. She couldn't understand why no one was there. Charlotte was used to the fact that in a moment of danger, someone had to come and save her. The girl introduced herself, and then Killian realized who she was facing. The sorcerer said that even though she was receiving God's love, he did not feel any special energy from her. But looking at her, the man began to realize how comfortable the girl had been living until now thanks to this very love. Killian also noticed that it is easier to pull her out than a weak indoor flower. But no, it is more like a blade of grass. Charlotte was outraged, asking if the man really thought she was weaker than even a blade of grass. The sorcerer said yes, and that was very nice. Ayla handed her idea, written on paper, to the tailor. Pollen was shivering and could not understand what he had forgotten in this place, and why he had started working on the design of this witch's dress in the first place, and for a ball that would take place in less than a month. If the imperial palace found out about it, the tailor's head would be in danger. So he said that he was really sorry, but the man had sworn that he would work only for the palace for the rest of his life, so he could not accept this request. Killian said that he had agreed to cooperate before coming here. Pollen said he remembered this, but not completely. To be more precise, it's not that he doesn't remember it completely. It may sound strange, but the tailor thinks he was drunk or asleep at the time. They say that bad things are learned quickly. Ayla had already imagined what she should have done in a similar situation. Even though her first step as a thief did not make her feel good, she had to try. The girl said that if the tailor doesn't want to do this project, then nothing can be done. Then the heroine lowered her voice and said that she would not force him. With a bit of intimidation, she said that she was ready to provide the tailor with a generous reward and complete anonymity. She promised that no one would know about the creator of this dress. And of course, she would accompany Pollen back to the imperial palace in absolute safety. Hanil asked if the place would be calm then. The man said that he probably had no other choice, so he reached out to take the design drawing that Ayla had made. Pollen looked at the notes carefully, while Ayla waited tensely for the expert's opinion. After a few minutes, the tailor enthusiastically said that it was the first time he had ever seen such a design. Then he asked if the lady had really invented it herself. The girl replied that she had, although it was actually created by her ancestors from the planet Earth. Still, she designed the details herself. The tailor asked what kind of fabric it would be. Ayla replied that it would be thin and light silk or muslin. Pollen noted that if this was done, the curves of the body would naturally become visible. This is both a classic and updated dress. The waistline is high, wrapped in a luxurious ribbon, and if you also decorate only the skirt with flounces, you won't need any more additions. This is a complete dress, created only for the one who will wear it. The girl noticed that the tailor did know what he was doing. She didn't want the corset to change the position of her organs or break a rib. This design was created for her survival. Ayla Mertensia is known to everyone as someone who is unparalleled in rudeness and ill-manneredness. That's why Pollen asked why she hadn't used such an amazing gift until now. The man could not believe it. Hanil said that she would create clothes only when she needed them and when she wanted to wear them. Then she turned toward the butler and asked if she was speaking correctly. Killian said yes, but the tailor said that the dress designed by the girl would not be appropriate for the ball, even though it was innovative. The heroine was outraged, asking why the man thought so. Pollen said that he doesn't decide anything. As a designer, the man can see the value of this dress. However, in high society, which is constantly following fashion, they will resist anything unusual. This is exactly what the heroine continued to worry about: the neglect, arrogance, and unhealthy interest that were constantly pouring in on her, as well as the feeling of shame she had to endure. All this happened not only because the girl moved into the body of the thief Ayla. In her past life, she had been adjusting to everyone, but she only heard herself called good. But in this one, there was nothing of the real Connell. Ayla said she would wear the dress anyway if she wanted to. Pollen could resist as much as he wanted, as if, no matter what the fashion, nothing would fit her as well as this dress. The girl tried to remember the last time she had felt others admire her. Probably when she was confident. The kind of confidence that comes from your abilities, not your crazy courage. Ayla asked the designer to simply make a dress created just for her, the one that would suit her best. She also added that, of course, Pollen, a world-renowned designer, would be able to do it. Then Connell asked if it was really what she thought. The designer said he would do it. Thus, she was able to get a world-renowned designer who worked exclusively with the imperial court to create her dress. After the conversation with the designer, the girl was overcome with shame. Ayla did not understand what she had said, as if she was some daughter of a rich family from the TV series. When the tailor asked her why she hadn't used her gift yet, she wanted to answer that she had just taken a design that already existed. That's what she would have said if she hadn't remembered Killian standing next to her, but it helped that she followed his advice. Ayla asked the man how he thought she had done. The sorcerer said it was pretty good. Killian said that no matter how miserable a person may seem, you have to watch them very carefully because they can be used to help you. Or it can target your life and become a cause for concern. The mention of miserable people reminded the heroine of something. Just like the day Ayla kicked Sophia out of her family, she had a great idea. Miss Ayla visited Sophia in prison. The maid was overjoyed. At least she showed it on her face. The lady told her that she was going to kick the maid out of her house. The maid screamed in fear, begging her not to do so. But Connell said that because of her affection for the maid, she would ask her father to personally write Sophia a letter of recommendation. This surprised the maid. Ayla wanted to make her a maid in the imperial palace for a while. While the heroine was thinking about unnecessary people, she had a great idea. How about sending Sophia to Charlotte as a spy? After all, the maid loves money. Charlotte, who receives the love and affection of the prince, will be a more tasty morsel for her than Isla. Sophia, who wants revenge, will be a traitor in any case. And then the lady will simply give her to another person, as if this is the only way she can be useful to her. Connell said that there was something that required Sophia's participation. The lady said that she thinks that a girl will arrive at the palace very soon. Charlotte. Behind the heroine, Killian shuddered with silent laughter. In her mind, Ayla asked him to stop, because he had made her like this. Turning her attention back to the maid, the heroine continued. In her opinion, because Charlotte's family is so poor that they don't even have their own manor, the girl pretends to be weak and defenseless, so that people will feel sorry for her. Sophia happily replied that she would do whatever her mistress ordered. Ayla said that it was the maid's job to spread rumors about the girl's life, but sometimes it is to follow the orders of the mistress. Laughing, Killian told Hanil that she could drive him crazy. The girl blushed and asked the butler to laugh quietly. In her mind, she called him crazy and couldn't understand why he was laughing so happily. The man said that he thought that the deity's offense was the best thing she had ever done, but he liked the current one even better. Isla thought that she shouldn't look for a meaning in this. After all, the sorcerer is just playing with her as if she were his pet. Killian just likes that she obeys him. The day before the Harvest Festival ball, preparations were moving incredibly fast and responsibly. Sophia, who now worked as Charlotte's maid, showered her with compliments, saying that she was incredibly charming. The maid said that the pastel colors went well with the lady's clear and fair skin. Charlotte thanked her for the compliment, but asked if her outfit was too bizarre. Sophia objected, saying that the girl's dazzling beauty would outshine even the glow of precious stones. She suggested choosing larger earrings. Of course, after such compliments, Charlotte agreed. The lady said that this ball would be special for her. Then the maid agreed, saying that her new mistress would definitely take the place of the main character at the ball. She also added that it was simply amazing to her that such a luxurious dress was designed by Charlotte, and that it was from Pollen. The maid said that there was no one who shone brighter than her mistress. Of course, Charlotte was embarrassed by these words. She thought that she would really be the star of the ball and receive even more attention than on the day of her debut. The lady also wondered if she would be able to see the man she had met at the Pollen house again. After all, he was incomprehensibly handsome. It was as if, despite the fact that he looked somewhat dangerous, the man was still able to attract her attention. And that sign looked like a bud of a May lily of the valley that had just blossomed. Charlotte wondered what family this butler was from. She decided that if she met him at the ball, she would do everything to make him embarrassed. The lady told the maid that she would think about the earrings a little more, but the outfit was perfect for the ball. Charlotte was very kind and thanked Sophia for her help. The maid replied that it was just her job. The maid smiled slyly and said that her mistress was very kind. Yoon Hanil had changed many part-time jobs in the service industry in her past life. She had the maximum level of confrontation with difficult customers. But even for her, there was a particularly unyielding opponent. It was Dobiela. Ayla invited the maid to her room. The sweet little girl happily greeted her mistress. The heroine tried to remain strict.